So I've been very confused as to why no one is protesting this recent file drop. And I just spent the last 8 hours researching protest and how protests are funded and how protests are grown. And you're going to be shocked. I condensed all the major protests in the last 5 years and how they were funded and how much money was spent for these protests to operate. The most recent protest, the No Kings protest, hundreds of thousands of people nationwide came together to protest. But it was coordinated by Indivisible, which is a Soros-backed nonprofit that controls a bunch of other nonprofits vertically and is also a PAC that donates to politicians. But basically, Soros's foundation, Open Society, donated 7.61 million to Indivisible and also another 3 million with a 2-year grant. But then there was those 200 other foundations like ACLU, Move On, Democratic Socialists for America that donated a lot of other money, but I just can't find the dollar amount. That protest would kind of be considered more on the left-leaning side of things. On the right-leaning side of things, there's a lot of them. But let's go over January 6th, one of the biggest. So groups like Women for America First received $3 million in dark money, which is money that can't be traced, who donated that money, for Stop the Steal, some protest event. And then Turning Point raised $11.2 million from also anonymous 7-figure donors. Super PACs like Preserve America, backed by Sheldon Allison's $90 million donation. And then there was the America First Corporation, $250,000. Post-event corporations donated $10 million to a sedition caucus. A lot of money was behind January 6th. A lot of money was behind Project 2025. The Project 2025 protests, which I don't really know about. I didn't hear about them in the news, but they received $25 million. Also, Black Lives Matter raised $90 million and Open Society committed $220 million post George Floyd. There's just a lot of money behind protesting. Based on all the data that I found, I tried to deduce the average cost of a nationwide protest, and it typically falls between $500,000 to $5 million. So that's for a smaller single day coordinated protest across multiple cities. For a larger sustained movement like Black Lives Matter, 2025 No Kings, it involves $10 million to $100 million to run these protests, to get the word out. Most of this goes to staff working the protest, to digital advertising, influencer outreach. They pay $500 to $8,000 per post to promote a lot of these protesters. One thing that's important to be said is most of the protesters at these events are not paid. That's not how these protests work. They don't pay people to show up. Maybe in some instances, it's really hard to find data on that, but all this money goes to promoting the protest. It is so hard to build something. You can build something and no one will see it, but it costs so much money to promote. So that's where all this money goes. It goes to promotion, which is why you don't see anyone protesting this recent file drop, because you need money to promote them. Most of these protests are backed by billionaires, and all these billionaires are in the files.